George Washington in the center of the front cover was kind of a no-brainer. There have been other magazine covers I've done with just one portrait and one thing in there. This one had 21 figures to do. The painting of George Washington, Paul Revere, and some of the other more well-known people was actually an easier thing to do because there was something there that I had to go from. There were a lot of things that I had to change in terms of like body position and all that, but the challenging thing was somebody like Harry Washington, Harry Washington was George Washington's slave. There are no images of him. He went on to fight for the British and ended up being free. The British were offering freedom to American slaves that came to fight for them. That was a little bit more challenging, so I basically had to make up the face. Just in terms of fitting people on the cover, some people had to be sitting, some people had to be standing. So for Ben Franklin, there are some paintings of him standing that are in full color, but the only one I could find of him sitting that was good was a black and white etching. So the color here had to be made up. The face, I had a portrait that was in color, so I could basically use that as a reference. The one thing that I actually found a lot of pleasure in was adding color to the cheeks in the men, more so than the women in a lot of cases. The style at that time, you saw a lot of rosy cheeks. In terms of the technique, it wasn't all that different than Gilbert Stuart painted this portrait of George Washington, which is what I took that from. And I pretty much glazed it, I think, as they would have done back then, starting with sort of a base color. And then I actually added some retardant into the paint, the acrylic paint, to let it dry a little slower. And so that gave me a little more chance to kind of smudge things around in the faces. But other than that, I think the glazing and sort of the technique was probably fairly similar to painters from the time of the Revolution. In terms of, somebody like Harry Washington, you didn't really hear much about him, but to have somebody like him or Pontiac, the Native American chief, have those people in prominence in an equal stance as some of these other people, presidents and other leaders, was, I think, telling the American story in a way that is sort of refreshing and looking at history in a way that I didn't read about when I was a kid.